Good morning. I had no intention of doing a video today, but I am reading a book. I don't read very many outside of the Bible because I feel like most of them, especially books that are written today, are more opinion than they are scriptural. So I don't read very many. This particular book was written in 1875, and it's very, very good. And I actually posted a quote from it this morning on Facebook, and it has really messed with me, and I feel like it's a message that that everyone needs to hear. But I'm going to read this and then talk about it a little bit. In The Christian's Secret of a Happy Life, which is not like it sounds, it is not a self-help book in the current sense of the word. Hannah Whitall Smith writes, "It is a fact beyond question that there are two kinds of Christian experience, one of which is an experience of bondage, and the other an experience of liberty. In the first case, the soul is controlled by a stern sense of duty and obeys the law of God, either from fear of punishment or from expectation of wages. In the other case, the controlling power is an inward life principle that works out, by the force of its own motions or instincts, the will of the divine life giver, without fear of punishment or hope of reward. In the first, Christian is a servant and works for hire. In the second, he is a son and works for love. There ought not, it is true, to be this contrast in the experience of Christians, for to walk at liberty is plainly their only right in normal condition. But as we have to deal with what is rather than what is ought to be, we cannot shut our eyes to the sad condition of bondage in which so many of God's children pass a large part of their Christian lives. The reason of this and the remedy for it are not difficult to find. The reason is legality, and the remedy is Christ." I also read a book recently by Watchman Nee, who also is a fantastic writer. And his books, you have to read very slowly to take in the depth of what he is writing. As a Chinese Christian in a very difficult time, he has wisdom and insight that many of us never get, because our experience is not that of the suffering that that he endured. However, in reading that, one of the chapters that he writes in this book, What Shall This Man Do?, he talks about salvation and the idea that, there are multiple ways to come to salvation. For some people, it is just a desperation to exit a way of living, to be offered new life. Typically, that includes recognizing that we are sinners and that we need a Savior. Now, that kind of rescue salvation, while it is legitimate salvation, tends to lead us to a legal response. We are grateful for this exchange of life, and so we want to continue to do good, to continue to earn more and more, or to stay in good graces with God. He contends that we actually need to encounter Jesus, that once we have the encounter, like Paul did on the road to Damascus, When we encounter Jesus, then our response to him becomes more of a desire for intimacy with him than it is just a response out of gratitude and a desire to not fall back into the lifestyle that we had, which echoes what Hannah Whitall Smith is saying here, that there is an obedience that comes from either fear or comes from the desire for some kind of reward. And that is the relationship of God and a servant, not of God and a son. And as I was praying about this morning, the analogy of an arranged marriage came to mind. Imagine, if you will, that you are in a culture where marriages are arranged, and your family finds a suitor for you. You are told about this suitor and what he can offer you, and you agree to the marriage because of all of the wonderful things that this man can bring to you. So you agree, and as is very customary, once there is an exchange of payment, you go and you live with your bridegroom's family for a time until you can actually be married, until there's actually a wedding ceremony. So you are living with the family. An exchange has been made, so the price has been paid, and you know more and more and more about who you're marrying, but you haven't met him yet. You're grateful for what he can offer you, and the fact that you're already living in his house with his parents and maybe his siblings, and the life that they are giving you is better than the life that you had. However, you still haven't met your groom. Once you meet your groom, and once there is that opportunity for a ceremony where you are placed in a position of intimacy, so you're getting to know him, and not until the ceremony can there be intimacy, or should be intimacy. I realize that in our culture, there's a lot of intimacy before marriage, or a false sense of intimacy. But for the sake of this analogy, you are now able to experience your groom. You have moments of intimacy with him. You spend time with him to know him more and more. You heard about him. You began to experience some of the benefit from being in relationship with him, even though you weren't quite in the relationship that was meant for you. You were able to experience some of those benefits, but it's not until you meet him, you spend time with him, and you have moments of intimacy with him that you can truly be in love with him. And I think that's where we fall short in our relationship with Jesus. We understand the benefit that he brings. We're grateful for what he offers us, for the life that he rescues us from and the life that he takes us to. But how many of us are spending intimate time with him? Now, just like a regular marriage, it's not all intimate time, right? There are moments that are intimate. There are moments that you share with your spouse that you don't share with anyone else. There are experiences that you share with your spouse that you don't share with anyone else. Jesus, as our bridegroom, wants us to experience him, who he is, and not just what he can offer us. I want to encourage you today to take a few moments and invite Jesus into a quiet time. Ask him to show you more of who he is. Ask him to speak sweet truths to your heart that only he can speak to you. It's time for us to stop living our Christianity out of a sense of duty, but out of a sense of love, of being in love with Jesus for who he is and not what he can do. He can do a lot of wonderful things. And in those moments of intimacy, what he does, what he brings is so beautiful that you want more and more of those moments. Don't let busyness or shame or the feeling of unworthiness keep you from beautiful moments with Jesus. Over the last couple of weeks, Steve has been presenting his messages on the Song of Solomon and the beautiful relationship between Christ and his bride, Christ and the individual believer. And I'm going to link the first one down below so that you can watch it. I think there are 3 or 4 weeks now. But the Song of Solomon shows us the beautiful relationship that Jesus desires to have with his bride. And as she encounters more of him, she wants more of him. And so I encourage you to watch these videos as well to get a better insight into the relationship that Jesus wants with us. But spend time with him today. Just say, Jesus, I want more of you. I want to encounter you. We need his presence. In his presence is the fullness of joy. Please hear my heart. We need more of Jesus. I'm praying for you today. Praying that you can drop everything that hinders you and run into his arms.